Hello, everybody. I'm here trying to share my screen to talk about The Death of Death, which is my recent best-selling book in Spanish. And I have been given a lot of presentations about all these new technologies that will allow us to live longer and longer. So we live in incredible times with incredible technologies that will basically stop aging, we hope, in the next few years, and then even reverse aging, which would be the eventual objective, so that we can live indefinitely young, not indefinitely old. So I don't know if some people have already heard about these new scientific advances, because they are really actually very new. All of this has been happening only in the last few years with the advancements of having experiments with animals, different type of animals. For example, with worms, we have been able to expand the life of worms like 10 times already, 10 times. Obviously, worms, depending on the type, they live very short lives. In the case that we study called C. elegans, normally they live a few days, and now we have worms that live a few months. So it is an incredible extension of life spans. And then flies, with flies, we have been able to increase the lifespan of flies 4 times, and with mice, almost 2 times. So we have mice that are about the equivalent of 200 human years old, and then all the way to flies, 400 human years equivalent. Okay, these are equivalent human years. And then worms, which live almost 1,000 human years. So they would be like the Methuselah worms. It really is quite incredible what is happening in the advances of science and technology. Another huge advancement was in the year 2006, when a Japanese scientist called Shinya Yamanaka, he discovered that changing 4 genes, only 4 genes, he could change the biological age of a cell. This was an incredible discovery in 2006. And because of that, he got the Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology in the year 2012. This is one of the most incredible Nobel Prizes. And as you might imagine, it was so spectacular that in only 6 years, after he managed to rejuvenate old cells, or even better, to control the aging process of the cells, manipulating 4 genes, he got the Nobel Prize. This is today called cellular reprogramming. We can reprogram the age of the cells. This is truly quite an amazing thing, fantastic, and there is a lot of research following that area of cellular reprogramming, because after cellular reprogramming, we have to go into organ reprogramming and then organism reprogramming. Additionally, we have been discovering fantastic things like cancer cells are biologically immortal. Today, we know that cancer cells do not age. Cancer cells can live indefinitely without aging. And this was discovered in 1951, but scientists were only able to study why this happens in the last few years, when we discovered about the telomeres at the end of the chromosomes. And today we know that cancer cells continuously regrow the telomeres, and that is why they do not age. So cancer cells can live forever. As I said, this was discovered in 1951 when a patient died of a huge cancer. But what is incredible is that cancer is still alive today. That cancer, which was born, by the way, in 1920, because the patient called Henrietta Lacks, and that is why the cells, her cancer cells, are called HeLa, Henrietta Lacks cells, were born in 1920. So in this year, 2020, those cells are about 100 years old. They have been kept alive after she died in 1951, and they are in top physical condition. Basically, they are teenager cells. They don't age. They are in eternal youth, perpetually young. So today we know that about cancer. Cancer are mutations that stop aging. There is no aging in cancer. And that is why it makes cancer cells to live indefinitely long and indefinitely young. Also, we know today that there are other cells that do not age, which are some of the best, like germ cells. Germ cells are the cells that make sperm in men and eggs in women. Those germ cells also do not age. They are considered biologically immortal. They could live indefinitely forever within an organism that doesn't die. The problem is that we die because we are mostly what is called somatic cells. Somatic from soma, from body in Greek. We are body cells, somatic cells. And we have a few germ cells which are needed for reproduction to make eggs and sperm. Those germ cells, they do not age. They are considered biologically immortal. Like cancer cells, as I repeat, cancer cells do not age. And what is common to those cells is that they could live forever. The problem is that they live within a body that ages, a soma that ages. And when the body dies, the germ cells inside, even though they do not age, or the cancer cells inside that do not age, they also die because the body dies. There is no more support. There is no more food for the germ cells or for the cancer cells. So anyway, these are incredible advancements, incredible discoveries. So we know there are cells that do not age. We also know there are some small organisms that do not age. You might have heard of some hydras or some medusas that they can also live indefinitely forever. And indeed, they are considered biologically immortal. So we know that there are immortal cells and some immortal organisms. And we can even reverse the aging process. As I mentioned, the discovery of the Japanese scientist Shinya Yamanaka in 2006. So aging can be controlled, can be accelerated, and actually can also be reversed. We know all of these today. And there is incredible amount of research now being accelerated because aging is not just any disease. Aging is the mother of all diseases. Aging basically is what makes all other diseases to happen. Today, like in the case of COVID, we can see that it is mostly people who are older who die. And this is also the same with almost all diseases. If you look at the probability of people having Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cardiovascular problems, cancer, almost anything, it is because of biological aging. If we stop biological aging, we will stop almost all diseases, almost all of them. Not all of them, because there are some diseases which are not biological or that are not inherited from our parents, because there are some diseases that can happen at our early age, which are not due to aging. They are due to our genes, at some problems or some deficiencies in our genes, in our genome. But most of diseases by far that are related to aging can be stopped if we could stop aging. And this is what scientists are trying to do now. And that is the subject of my book, The Death of Death, which in Spanish is La Muerte de la Muerte. And the objective is that people know that this is possible, that this is, we hope, going to happen soon, the more and more people know about this. And for example, I would like to ask you, how many of you knew before that cancer cells are biologically immortal? I think very few very few people know this, even though we have known that, as I mentioned, since 1951. Or how many people know that germ cells, the germ cells that you have in your body, that I have in my body, that they also don't age, that they are biologically immortal, or that there are some organisms that are biologically immortal. As I mentioned, some hydras, medusas, and so on. So the first thing, and that is my objective, is that people know that aging can be controlled, that aging can be reversed, and that aging is a disease. And it is a disease that can be cured with advances in science and technology. These are the points that I am focusing on. And also, I am trying to explain this to as many people as possible. And so with my book, The Death of Death, for example, I am donating all royalties, all the author rights, everything to scientific research against aging, because people need to know that aging is a disease, but it is a curable disease that we can control. That is my objective. That is what people need to know. And also because the most beautiful thing in life is life itself. And therefore, if we can have more life, better life, healthier life, more environmentally friendly life, because I hear some birds in the background. We would like to have some more birds and some more life, all forms. And this is possible, and this we should be able to do once we can control aging. Basically, people who are working on this, like my friends Aubrey de Grey, who is one of the world leaders, and Ray Kurzweil, who is the founder of Singularity University, director of engineering at Google, and also the author of a very famous book, The Singularity Engineer. He talks about two dates, 2029 and 2045. What are these dates? Well, first, 2029 is the time when we hope in about 9 years, when we will reach longevity escape velocity. What does it mean? What is longevity escape velocity? Longevity escape velocity is the time when we reach that point, for every year we live, we gain an extra year, and then more and more and more. As we know today, life expectancy overall, obviously some ups and downs, like right now there is a down because of COVID, but overall, from ancient times, life expectancy has been growing and growing and growing. So in less than 10 years, we should reach longevity escape velocity, which means, I repeat, that for every year we live, we gain an extra year of life. However, still aging. In 10 years, we will not have probably controlled aging in humans, but we will be able to cure most diseases related to aging. So we would live 1 year and we get 1 extra year, and so on and so on. So we can living, even if we're still aging somewhat. And then the second time, the second date that we give after 2029 for longevity escape velocity is 2045 for fully rejuvenation technologies. And that we expect to be in 2045. I hope that most people here will be alive to the year 2045, when we will have these technologies that will allow us to live indefinitely young. And I repeat, indefinitely young, because that is the objective. The objective is indefinite lifespans, to live indefinitely young. So I hope that most people would agree that life is good, healthy life is good, young life is good, fuller, wealthier, richer, abundant, environmentally friendly life is better. So those are my ideas, my comments, and so I would like to open for any discussion that you might have, and to ask you, when would you like to die if you ever would like to die?
So should we just raise our hand or?
I think you can just begin talking, yes?
Okay, sorry, I've got you on two screens, so I'm gonna try to mute you on that one. Yeah, I have a question. So you were saying about like 2045 being the seal for ages, and I was wondering, like, is it going to be access to everyone? Is that what you're suggesting, or are you suggesting just people who can afford it will be able to pay for this?
This should be available to everybody because it will be basically free when we
Okay, I
reach
see.
2045. When technologies begin, they are very expensive and very bad. But when they are democratized, when they are massified, they become very good and they become very cheap. So, but the reason why this will be cheap is, once, because it is better to prevent than to cure. And today, basically 80% of the medical expenditures go into curing diseases in old age when they are basically also non-stoppable. So if we can, instead of curing all diseases of aging, we can prevent all diseases, this is what we should do. So we will not spend more, we will spend differently. Not at the end of life, but at the beginning of life, so that people don't age. And I repeat, this should be available to every person, everybody who wants it.
And are there any natural processes right now that we should do to be preparing ourselves if we're already young for, like, is it just health wise, or um, are there any surgeries we should avoid getting, for example?
Oh, yes, of course. Well, the first thing you need to do is to read my book. And not just my book, but there are some other books talking about anti-aging and rejuvenation. But if you Google The Death of Death, you will find me, The Death of Death, or in Spanish and Portuguese, the name of my book, La Muerte de la Muerte, where we talk about several things. But more specifically to your question, Ray Kurzweil, my friend who founded Singularity University, he basically talks about 3 bridges to immortality, 3 bridges. The first bridge, which is right now, which is basically to do the things that your mom told you: eat well, exercise, sleep, don't do foolish things, etc., etc. So those are the most trivial things. They will take us into bridge 2 that begins now. Bridge 2 is in the 2020s, which are the first biotechnology treatments for longevity and rejuvenation. And that will take us into bridge 3, which is the nanotechnology treatments. Through nanotechnologies and nanobots, nanorobots, small nanobots within our bodies, they will clean our system, our human body, and they will protect and repair parts of our body. And then we will get into the last final point, which is the 2040s, into immortality. But so I repeat, bridge 1, do what your mother told you. Bridge 2 is the first biotechnology treatments. They are just beginning. There are a few scientific pages that you can check with the first treatments. I'll just give you 2 which are popularly known. One is metformin. Metformin that was used for people with diabetes. It was discovered that it is good not just for diabetes. It is good to be healthy longer time. So metformin, which is a very very cheap and available drug. It's only about 2 cents per day, so really cheap. And you can buy in most countries, freely available. The other one that is being experimented with animals is called rapamycin. Rapamycin has been able to double the lifespan of most animals, including dogs and cats, thanks to rapamycin. So the first human trials are beginning now to see if it will have a similar effect. But if it has been able to extend the lifespan of many animals, almost by double, triple, and even more in some other small animals, then we expect this to work also with humans, and we will know soon. Anyway, there are many other treatments. If you Google the death of death, you will discover a few more things.
Thank you so much.
Okay, some other comments, questions. We still have a few more minutes.
What do you need help with your work?
Yes, of course, we all need help. I think this is the mother of all revolutions. There is nothing that compares to staying healthy for as long as you want. Nothing. I mean, forget about terrorism, forget about environmental issues, forget about religious crisis, forget about COVID-19. You know, the mother of all problems and the common enemy of humanity is aging and death. So yes, you need to tell people, we need your help. We need you to contribute in any possible way you can do. There are experts in different parts of the world, mostly in the USA, in Britain, in Japan, but in other places, like I am in Spain, and in Spain there are scientists also working on many of these issues. So I don't know where you are based, but try to find who is working on longevity and anti-aging. Also, because this is very new, and before it was thought to be crazy, to be impossible, people still don't believe that this is really science and technology. So it is good for you to read more, to be more knowledgeable about all of this, and to tell others that this is science, that this is possible, that this is true. Okay, so a few more comments, questions.
Could you repeat those two medicines?
Yes, metformin, it's available almost anywhere very cheaply without a medical prescription unless you are in the USA. But in Europe, you buy it, as I said, for 2 cents per day, metformin. The other one, which is used with animals, is called rapamycin. Google it and put some videos. It's incredible. You can see what it does with animals. Animals being rejuvenated. It really is fantastic. So check it out, rapamycin as well. But now with animal trials, hopefully very soon, beginning now with human trials. By the way, do you see my book in there? That's the cover of my book in Spanish. And if you speak Twitter, that is me, at Cordeiro, which is my last name, at Cordeiro.